Okay, it's live.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, welcome to this virtual cabinet panel on the environment meeting that is being conducted with members and officers at various locations communicating via audio, video and online. There is also the opportunity for the public and press to listen to and view proceedings. We also have contributors from various organisations with us here to provide feedback. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to take a roll call to confirm that the required members, officers and participants can be heard.
Thank you, Chair. So when your name is called, please indicate your attendance to confirm that required members, officers and registered speakers are present and can hear and be heard. So I'll start first with members. Sorry, just muted myself. So yeah, members first. So Councillor Amy Allen.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Emma Fernandez.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Graziano.
Hello, present.
Thank you, Councillor Graziano. Councillor Griffiths. Okay, I'll come back to that at the end. Councillor Caroline McDonald.
I'm here.
Sorry, just quickly, Councillor Graziano, would you mind just popping yourself on mute? Because there appears to be a bit of feedback coming through, I think, your screen. Oh, no, maybe not.
I think that's actually you, Roger. The feedback's coming back. If you could just make sure you're on mute, please.
Perfect.
Thank you. So next on my list is Councillor Lisa Nash. No, I'll come back to that one as well. And then Councillor Claire Strong.
Good evening, everybody, and a happy new year to those I haven't wished it already.
Happy New Year to you too, Councillor Strong. Thank you. Next on my list is officers. So Georgina Chapman.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ellie Hollingsworth.
Yeah, present.
Thank you. Amber Smith Howell.
Yeah.
Thank you. Daisy Harris.
Right, yeah.
Thank you. And then I'll move on to the public. Now we have quite a few members of the public here, so bear with me whilst I get through these. First of all, we have Chris Carslake. I believe they might be late though, so
I think Chris is joining at 7:45 because he had a prior commitment.
Chris is here.
Oh, he's here. Excellent.
Ah, there he is.
perfect. Could you just indicate that you can hear us, Chris, and that can you test out your mic? Yep, no, that's great. We can hear you. Brilliant. And next on my list, I have Fiona Hughes.
I think she'll be joining at 7:45 as well, potentially, or when she's free.
Okay, thank you, Amber. Then we have Maria Hart. Sorry if I just mispronounced your name. No problem. Then we have Diane Ketcher. Absent as well. Then Roger Lovegrove.
Good evening.
Good
Thank you for the
evening.
invitation.
No problem. Thank you, Roger. We have John Webb. Sorry, Roger, would you mind just putting yourself back on mute, please? Then we can get through the rest of the public participants. Thank you very much. Next on my list was John Webb. No problem. Then Christine Watson.
Yes, hi.
Good evening, thank you. Then we have Gilly Chegwin. Yeah, I can see you can hear us. Brilliant. Then we have Andrew, it looks like, from the label.
That's Andrew Harris from Letchworth Garden Shed. I'm here.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Then we have Kavita.
Yep, Kavita from Letchworth Garden Shed as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kavita. And then finally, we have Sue Lyons.
I'm here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Sue. I cannot see anyone else in attendance on my list, but if I haven't called you out, just indicate now. doesn't look like there's anyone else, so I will now hand back to the chair. Thank you, Chair.
Super, thank you very much. So apologies for absence. I've received no apologies. Minutes 2nd of April and the 17th of September 2025. I propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meetings of the Cabinet panel that were held on the 2nd of April and the 17th of September. 17th of September being probably the council's shortest meeting ever recorded. Can I have a seconder, please?
Peter second.
Thank you, Claire. Oh, actually, 1 second, just quickly. Out of the councillors on the panel, those present on the September meeting were Caroline McDonnell and Joe Graziano. So do we need to have, can this be an informal thing, or do we need to do specifically one of the councillors who are both present at both the meetings? Sorry to be awkward.
No, there's no preference.
Is this the one where it was cancelled?
Yes,
Amy?
but we still had to open it and close it officially because there had been
I'm fine.
a
Yeah,
call to
that's
the...
fine. We don't need. Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
Okay, so Claire Strong for being so keen, Councillor Strong for being so keen is there for therefore the seconder. Okay, Chair's announcements. In accordance with Council's policy, this meeting is recorded. The recordings will be available on both the Council's YouTube page as well as the Council's ModGov site. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Members are reminded that this Council has declared both a climate emergency and an ecological emergency. These are serious decisions and mean that as these are emergencies, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. The final item on tonight's agenda is to consider suggestions of items for future meetings. Please could members and any of the public consider this throughout the meeting and provide any suggestions when discussion on that item takes place. I will then consider these alongside officers for inclusion at a future meeting of the event. So if you think of anything during the meeting, please flag it up at the end, rather than me dropping it on you at the end and then you have to think about it and come back. Notifications of other business. There has been no other business notified. And with that, we move on to the item 5, which is the Council Activity Update and Action Tracker with Georgina Chapman to present.
Yes, thank you. So, yeah, the information note is essentially summarising what the topic of this meeting is going to be. So we're going to do our general council activity update, and then we're also going to include in that key progress on our sustainability strategy actions, because we relatively recently, last year sometime, approved our new sustainability strategy. So we've been monitoring progress on the actions for that. So we'll bring that now as a regular kind of item to this panel so you can hear about the progress. We'll review the action tracker, and then we've got some speakers. So we've got Letchworth Heritage Foundation with an environmental update, and we've also got Green Heat Co-op who are going to give us a presentation on community energy. So if I hand over to Ellie for the first lot of council activity updates, please.
Thank you, George. So yeah, first update is on the public sector decarbonisation scheme. So this is a project to decarbonise our leisure facilities across North Hertfordshire. So this is the first phase, and work is progressing well. And there's works on site at all of the sites, including solar panel installations, improvements to insulation, and installations of air source heat pumps and power kiosks. For the second phase of decarbonisation of North Herts Council sort of buildings relating to Hitchin Town Hall, North Herts Museum and the District Council offices, as well as the learning pool at North Herts Leisure Centre, we're in the progress of appointing a team to move forward on designs and looking to submit a plan application this financial year. Next up, we have climate engagement. So our North Herts engagement hub for climate change and sustainability, the Climate Hive, now has over 920 subscribers. So that's something we're really proud of. And the new sort of e-bulletin system that we've been using has been keeping residents up to date quite regularly, and the numbers are increasing over time, which is really nice to see. So we'll keep residents up to date on the latest surveys, consultations, eco events, National Environment Days, events such as the Cabinet panel that we're at today, and sort of general council activity and things that the residents can get involved with. So yeah, we're really proud of that, and it's continuing well. So if you're not signed up, then that's your action for today, to go and have a look at it. Next up is the Sustainable Communities Grant. So this was funded by the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. This was launched last year, and the team assessed and scored applications during September. So the result of that was £62,000 just over in grant funding awarded to 6 local organisations. So this was to support different sustainability projects across the district. Just to highlight the recipients of the grants, so we had Royston Museum for installation of air source heat pump systems, Benslow Music Trust for the installation of EV charging points, Kimpton Parish Council for installation of solar PV and battery storage on their pavilion, some biodiversity improvements to St Mary's Church in Ashwell, Create Community for delivery of sustainability educational sessions, and Green Heat Co-op, who will be hearing from later today, for development of retrofit training and sort of home energy upgrade guide for Royston. And lastly, before I hand over, we've got our latest sustainability briefings that we do on a monthly basis available to view on the website. The link is in the information note should anyone want to go and look at those. And yeah, any questions on those, then we're happy to take those via email. I'm now going to pass over to George for the next bits.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. Just before I go on to the sustainability strategy updates, I'm just going to touch on some of the work that we kind of do at county level in partnership. So if I talk about Solar Together, which is the group buying scheme for solar that we do through the Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership. So we ran a 3rd round of that. Over 650 North Herts residents registered interest and 113 accepted their offers for solar PV. We also had 1 business accepted for battery storage. And the latest figures are that 72 solar installations have been completed in North Herts, totaling 762 panels. And that also includes 68 batteries that have been installed as part of that as well. And it's estimated that 63,295 kilograms of CO2 will be saved per year from what's been installed in this 3rd round. Next thing at a county-wide level is about the local nature recovery strategy. So these are statutory spatial strategies which kind of map priorities for nature recovery across Hertfordshire. And that is now been finalised, the Hertfordshire Nature Recovery Strategy, and it's going to be officially launched at a Hertfordshire Nature Summit in late January. I think it's the 27th of January. I will put the link in the chat. The event has unfortunately sold out. It sold out in a couple of days, but there is a waiting list should any of you want to try and get on the waiting list for the event. And then if we move on to the sustainability strategy progress update, so the kind of key progress so far, the strategy I should say is for the 25 to 2030 period, and actions are being monitored by our climate and sustainability officer group and also by political liaison board, which is comprised of cabinet members and also our leadership team. So we're bringing quarterly updates on the progress on the actions to both of those groups. So the key updates are the public sector decarbonisation work that Ellie's already touched on, as well as the Sustainable Communities Grant Fund as well. Other achievements so far have been that hydrogenated vegetable oil, or HVO, is now in use in all the refuse vehicles, as well as in hire vehicles through the waste contract. The hire vehicles are being used prior to the arrival of electric vehicles. That's for vehicles 3.5 tonnes and under. New EV charge points have gone live in car parks across the district, and more are due to gain grid connections in the new year, so kind of January, February time. What's next? The Warm Homes local grant work continues to be progressed. So this is a scheme to help those who are particularly on lower incomes to have retrofitting measures to their homes to make them more comfortable and more energy efficient. That work is underway, and we did a kind of press piece in Winter Outlook magazine that went out just before Christmas to try and reach more of those who are eligible, so that we're not just doing kind of social media or online promotion. And yeah, in terms of biodiversity, further areas in our open spaces are being considered for reduced mowing regimes in 2026. So we've already done quite a lot on that. There's already quite a number of areas that have got reduced mowing regimes, but there are some further areas that we can expand into as well. Couple of other updates I'm going to hand over to, first of all, Daisy and then to Amber, because they worked closely on those projects. So if I could hand over to Daisy next, please.
Thanks, George, and good evening, everyone. So one of our strategy actions was to provide climate change training to North Herts Council staff. So in December, we launched a brand new sustainability e-learning module for staff, which was mandatory for everyone. And we felt that it was important for all officers to have a basic understanding of climate change, how it affects our district, and our role as a local authority. And we wanted to specifically create our own module from scratch rather than use a preset generic package, so that we could tailor it specifically to North Herts and also to officers of a local authority, because we have different responsibilities than the average organisation to our residents. So the module that we ended up with included information on the basic facts about climate change, the climate change related issues that affect North Herts in particular, the need to adapt to the effects of climate change, the unique biodiversity in North Herts and countywide, and then the threats to biodiversity caused by climate change. We also included information on the main aims of our sustainability strategy and our roles and responsibilities as a local authority. As I said, it's mandatory for all staff, so hopefully we should see a good completion rate, and we've already got some good feedback on it so far. So over to Amber for some updates on her project.
Thank you, Daisy, and hello everyone. Just a couple of quick updates from me. So firstly, a North Herts Council app was launched at the end of last year in November, which has multiple different sort of modules on there, but especially focused on recycling, with like a guidance on how to recycle properly and bin day notification reminders. This is part of like the wider effort to improve recycling rates, but also went alongside the 3-weekly service change we saw. The app currently has nearly 14,500 downloads, which we're really pleased with in such a short space of time. And if anyone is interested in downloading it, it can be found on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. If you just type in North Herts Council, it's free to download. So that's really good. And next, we are doing a project with key teams across the council, which we're liaising with them on, to record and monitor the impacts that we're seeing from extreme weather events on our council services. We're doing this to make sure we can be resilient as a council to climate change over the coming years, and so that we're able to mitigate any effects we do see to our services where we can, and make sure we're still carrying on smoothly to any effects we do see in the coming years. But yeah, that's everything from me. So I'm going to hand back to George now to talk through the action tracker.
Thank you. Thanks, Amber. So the action tracker, there is not tons on here because we kind of revised it last year and basically started it from fresh. But the most recent action, which we've put as completed, was to review the asks of Decarbonised Letchworth around retrofitting and supplementary planning guidance. There was stuff around kind of design guidance and that sort of thing as well. We invited Letchworth Heritage Foundation to come and give a presentation on their elements of that to the last panel meeting. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, the meeting had to be cancelled. We haven't rearranged that particular topic because the speaker went instead to the Letchworth Community Forum to present what they were going to present to this panel to the Letchworth Community Forum. It was like exactly the same presentation, and Decarbonised Letchworth, who requested the topic, were in attendance at that Letchworth Community Forum. But if anybody is really keen for that presentation to come back to this panel, you can let us know later when we circle back to topics for the rest of the year. In terms of the North Herts Council element of that, obviously our Sustainability Supplementary Planning Document, or SPD, is live. And as well as that, the planning team are producing a design code for the district as well, which will deal with some of those design issues and planning. and that is hopefully going to be coming to the phase. They're kind of doing it in a phased approach, and phase 1 of that design code I think is due to go to Cabinet in February, ahead of then being open for public consultation. So you will all be seeing that in due course. Yeah, and then just to note as well on the work programme, it says TBC for February for topics, but Amber and Daisy have managed to book some speakers for that February meeting. So I think the kind of theme for that one is going to be eco schools and sustainability in schools. So yeah, that will be the plan for February. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much, everyone. It's fantastic to hear just how much work has been going in. I do know that that is the tip of the iceberg, really, in considering the amount of work you have actually all been doing. But it is really good to hear it being discussed. The Climate Hive subscription, 920, that has actually gone up even more since we last spoke. So that's phenomenal. I'm so proud of that. Well done, guys. That's great. And again, the council app, that has jumped a bit as well. I'm wondering if the Christmas period encouraged that. So it was about 9,000 last I looked at any information. So 14,500 overall is an amazing number. So yeah, now I would just like to go to the panel and ask, does anyone have any questions about everything you've just heard? Does anything want any clarification? Would anyone like to say anything before we move on? And I'm aware, Councillor Graziano, that you are on the move, so I'm going to give you an extra moment in case you do want to come in, because I know it can take a little bit longer when you're doing stuff. Julia Sananda. You're on mute, Julia.
Am I off mute?
You are. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because it was all very speedily done. There was some document being worked on which was to do with something. There was a new document and I wanted to understand, is that going to touch on what you expect or what you will accept for in conservation areas for things like solar panels and external insulation, or have I got the wrong end of the stick there? Is that not what this new policy or whatever it is about at all? Can you just clarify that one?
There will be kind of aspects of that, as I understand, in the design code. I will double check, because it's a phased approach. I did ask the planners about this. I can put it in the chat when I found the email, but I think some of that specifically in conservation areas might be in the phase 2, but I will double check and I'll put it in the chat when I found the email.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you, George. Any other hands up? Christine.
Hi, I just wanted to know about the what Daisy spoke about, the e-learning module for staff. Are there any plans to pass that information about climate change and main aims of sustainability and so on to the public? Or is this all in-house and only to be in-house?
This training specifically was designed for staff only.
Okay. With what in mind?
We just wanted to give all officers a basic understanding of climate change so that they could serve residents better, and also have more of an understanding on what we're doing as a council, so they can be better armed when they have questions coming in.
The information that's in it, Daisy, how much of that is perhaps just ready available on our website and on our Climate Hive?
A good chunk of it, actually. So there's a big section on the sustainability strategy, which is all publicly available. And yeah, a lot of the stuff on the sections about biodiversity and adaptation can be found on the Climate Hive, I would say.
Okay. If it hasn't already been done so, could you pop a link to the Climate Hive and such in the chat so that everyone can have that ready and saved before the end of the meeting?
Yes, I think John Webb has popped a link in there already. Thank you, John.
Super. Thank you, John. I should know you'd be on it, to be perfectly honest. Right. Okay, if there are no more hands up, because I know sometimes a question does then bring up another question. No? Okay, right. Well, in that case, I'm going to move on to item 6 in our presentations. And up first, we have Chris Carslake from Letchworth Garden City Heritage Foundation giving a presentation on an environmental update. So Chris, it's over to you.
Thank you. And I'll let someone stop me if you can't hear me or if it's unclear. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present in this forum. It's an update based on a feasibility study, and forgive me for reading what is a very dry script, but making sure that I'm covering everything that I need to. So as the foundation, we have Strategy 2028, which guides our work of the foundation. So the first strategic aim is financial resilience. And so that is, we are focused on improving our financial resilience by active asset management and developing, responding to changing needs and market opportunities and transitioning to a low carbon economy estate. So to deliver against this aim, we successfully applied for funding for a feasibility study to assess the potential for renewable energy generation on our rural estate. This was through the Great British Energy Community Fund, which was previously known as the Community Energy Fund. It's a government programme which specifically finds community energy projects to do feasibility and development. So we selected a consultant called SEEN. They started the study by assessing the suitability of all our land holdings. 2 sample locations which appear to have the highest technical suitability based on the publicly available data have been selected. We're waiting to hear back from UK Power Networks to identify the cost for the infrastructure for those 2 sites and therefore whether it indeed is feasible. So we don't know what will be deemed a feasible size for the solar array, but to paint a picture of the energy benefits of a 5 megawatt peak solar array, one that size would typically generate just under 5,000 megawatt hours per year, or roughly equivalent to powering about 1,375 homes, which is around 1.5 LG1 developments of 900 homes, if you're familiar with that ongoing project. This scale would require land of an area of about 2 football-sized stadiums, around 25 acres, which is less than 1% of the foundation's rural estate. So again, those figures are demonstrative, they're not what we're proposing. We don't know who will use this energy. It might be consumed directly by a business or fed into the national grid. The foundation will seek to maximise the income generation from the project so that local residents can benefit through our charitable activities and grant programme. We don't know who would design, construct, operate, maintain or decommission a development, and it's too early to tell if a community share option would offer best value. So renewable energy developments on greenbelt land like we're proposing are currently in conflict with the national planning policy, we're aware of this, and very special circumstances must be demonstrated by the benefit of the solar meadow to outweigh the green belt designation. We ourselves do not have a specific or formal policy on renewable energy development on our rural estate. However, our charitable objective for preservation of the environment will affect our proposal, as does the Garden City ethos, if that's the right word, of local food production and guarding the continuous loop of open countryside surrounding Letchworth. If the feasibility study confirms a suitable location, so if it is suitable, a board paper will be presented with these points. This is based on an agreement in principle that was agreed in 2025 that if deemed feasible, they would consider making a decision. So what's the point in going through a feasibility study if our trustees aren't minded to consider it in the first place about a low carbon energy installation? And maybe some points to address off the back is why use farmland when we've got all the industrial buildings? So solar meadows, which is proposed, are reversible developments over their lifetime. Not all of our rooftops are technically or economically suitable for solar, and land that could support biodiversity improvements during operation rather than agricultural land, which is usually a monocrop, high input, high output approach, whereas a solar is much more sensitive. So rounding up, the next step is if a financially sustainable site is deemed after the UK Power Networks response, we'll progress to pre-application advice with North Herts District Council planning. And that's why we wanted to come to a public forum first before the information came out through a planning portal or something like that. So this is our first public It's not, we're not consulting on this because it might never happen. It's just sharing the information so that residents can be aware from the very early stages of the work of the Heritage Foundation. Thank you again for your patience and for bearing with me whilst I read through that very dry piece of information. I do need to duck off, so I'd be very pleased to take any questions about what I've spoken about. I'm not an expert of all areas of the foundation, so I can't really speak to other areas. We did receive other area related questions. I've passed them on to the relevant department to respond to in due course, and I've forgotten our customer service standards, so please forgive me and bear with us while we respond to those. Thank you.
There we go. Remember to unmute myself. Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Are there any quick questions for Chris, or perhaps people can submit them later if Chris has to go? Fiona, your hand is up.
Sorry, Chris, you may have said this, but do you have a timeline for when you're going to get that report in and see what options might be feasible?
Current target date is summer this year. The consultant should return to us much quicker. There's currently a pause because we're not sure on how we're going to pay the consultant because the money isn't being released by the Greater South East Net Zero Hub through Cambridgeshire Combined Authority, all very peculiar. But yes, this year, summer hopefully.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, I have the opportunity to do it in person. And do remember, you can submit things to us later that we can then pass on, or you can contact Chris directly because there's contact details on the Heritage Foundation website. Okay, no one? Right, okay. Chris, if you need to chip off, it looks like you are free to go and we will update you on anything else that comes in, all right?
Thank you so much again for the opportunity and thank you everyone for listening. Bye.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye, Chris. Just going to bring up my chair's notes again. There we are. Okay, right, marvellous. So now we move on to Fiona Hughes from Green Heat Co-op to give a presentation on community energy. So Fiona, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Thanks very much for inviting me today. And yeah, good to see a lot of familiar faces and also some new faces. So hopefully there'll be some new information for everyone. If anyone was at the HCCSP event this week, I think some things might be a little bit familiar to you, but hopefully all interesting. So yes, I'm Fiona Hughes from Green Heat Co-op, and Green Heat Co-op is a nonprofit community energy business, and I'll explain more about what that means in a few minutes. But going on to the next slide, just a few points here on what I'll be covering today. So what is community energy? What is happening with it locally? Although we already heard about something I didn't even know about was happening from Chris earlier. Then we'll have a bit on how you can cut bills and save carbon in your own home. And lastly, how you can get involved with community energy if you are interested to do so. So starting off, what is community energy? Broadly, community energy is about keeping the benefits of the energy that we all use every day in the local community. Keeping those benefits local to us, rather than sending the money, the skills, the jobs, whatever it might be, out of the community to, for example, large companies or overseas shareholders or maybe hostile nations, who tend to supply a lot of the fossil fuels that we use. Community energy uses cooperative democratic business models, so generally co-ops or community benefit societies, other nonprofit forms of business, to invest in local renewable energy, which typically in our area is solar panels, but it could also be wind or hydro in other areas. And these businesses can also provide services related to home energy, which might be advice or potentially installations, in addition to the investment in renewables. The key thing is that any surplus from these various activities is reinvested locally to fund other social impact work, which might be community outreach or education on climate or other topics. It might be around fuel poverty, or really anything that is of interest to the local community and has a local benefit. So generally, community energy is about businesses, but they are democratically run, not-for-profit, and place-based. On the next slide, then, we have some statistics here. This comes from Community Energy England. So these figures are for all of England in 2025. And you can see there the figure 411 megawatts of total renewable capacity that is owned by communities. The government currently has pretty big plans for increasing the role of community energy as they work on the Clean Power 2030 Action Plan. So part of that plan calls for 8 gigawatts of community-owned power across the UK. So this 411 megawatts is only for England, but nevertheless, 8 gigawatts is a 20 times increase on that. So if some project does go ahead in Letchworth, or we'd like to have other projects in North Hertfordshire, then those could be part of that big buildup. Chris mentioned, unfortunately, the difficulties with getting the funding. There is a new organization called Great British Energy that is overseeing the sort of clean power transition, and they are also in charge of the community energy funding that's available, and hopefully that will all be ironed out quite soon. If anyone's interested in the details of this, I'm happy to chat more, but I won't go into it now. You can see also on this picture, community energy groups are working on building energy efficiency, on low carbon transport, on energy storage. There's a lot of different bits and pieces that people are involved with. On the next slide then, just to, I guess, wrap up on what is community energy, it's really about putting people at the heart of the energy transition so that renewable energy can be a source of local pride because people have had input into the projects that are in their area and they're benefiting from those projects, rather than the renewable energy being something that people resent because it's been done sort of to them and they didn't have input into where the projects are and they aren't feeling the benefits of those projects. So I got this image from John Taylor at Community Energy England, but I really love it because it shows how in the past people were so proud of the renewable energy, the sort of windmills that they had in their villages or their towns, that they were featured. They're like points of pride featured on the local signs. And wouldn't it be great if we could sort of get back to that, that same feeling of feeling a sense of ownership and sort of pride of place because we had input and we are benefiting from renewable power projects rather than sort of just passively paying our energy bills every month and sending that money away. Moving on then to community energy in our area. There are a few solar schools, so that's schools that have solar arrays on them in Hitchin with the Hitchins Boys School and Kingshott School, which I believe is in Letchworth. Outside of North Hertfordshire, there are 3 schools in East Hertfordshire that had solar installations. A fair few years ago now, that was done by a group called Hartford Energy Now, or HEN. A bit further afield, down towards St Albans and Watford, there's a group called Grand Union Community Energy who has a lot of different projects, including solar for schools and community buildings. They're working on some heat network studies to see where renewable heat or waste heat, particularly from data centers, which are going up around London, how that might be used. That waste heat might be used to heat homes and businesses. And then they have a few outreach programs such as Energy Champions, who provide fuel energy advice on saving money to people who might be experiencing fuel poverty or just generally wanting to save money on bills. Sustainable Streets is in a little bit of a similar vein, but just working with people who all live either in a single area or neighborhood, or are in the same workplace, or go to the same church, whatever it might be, to go work through sustainability topics and come up with ideas about how they can all work together to improve the sustainability in their own lives. I'll also mention Zero Carbon Ashwell, who are also just started a village feasibility study. So they're looking at what options for either a heat network or solar projects or other things might be suitable for their village. And they've just started that. I think at the end of last year. So I think it'll be at some point later this year, there'll be some findings from that, which will be interesting. So coming on now to Green Heat Co-op, the sort of the question and the theory behind Green Heat Co-op is how can a community group or community business inspire people to save energy and carbon in their own homes? And importantly, how can we make that process easier? If you've ever done a home renovation or installed had a big project at home, whether it was a heat pump or solar panels or just a home extension or a new kitchen, you know that these projects can feel quite fraught and difficult. It's expensive. It's hard to get good advice. It's typical. It's just difficult to get going. So we're trying to smooth that process through advice in the local community, providing information, and then also through bespoke independent advice as a paid for service for those who are able to pay, and then that as with other community energy businesses, any surplus can be reinvested into our outreach activities. I'll just say on the name, Green Heat, so around 20% of the UK's emissions are from heating, and we do sort of focus on heat pumps. We also talk about solar panels and insulation and lots of other things, but heat pumps are sort of the biggest bang for your buck, the biggest way to reduce a building's emissions. Depending on how you count, they can get you pretty much to 100% reduction. So that's sort of what we're leading with, but we recognize that different homes and different people in different situations will need different solutions. And it's not always straight to a heat pump, but it is something to work towards. We are based in Royston, so we work across North Hertfordshire and South Cambs. I just have a little case study here. So this is a house actually in Sawston in South Cambs, who, let's see, it must have been in 2024, they had a heat pump home survey. The survey that we do is basically the same as what a heat pump installer will do. We use the same software and go through the same procedure, but then we're able to give an independent view of what a heat pump would look like in their home, and also importantly, should they be considering other things either before the heat pump or at the same time. So that might be things like topping up the loft insulation or doing draft proofing. Thinking about their tariff, there's lots of sort of bits and pieces that come with. So in this case, the homeowner then went ahead and they wanted to proceed with the installation. We connected them with local installers who they were able to use our survey to get a quote from them, and then you can see the heat pump finally installed here. So that was a a great example there. I just see the question in the chat. It can be expensive, these surveys. We do try to keep the costs down as much as possible, but it does, of course, take time to survey homes. So our costs start at £350. That's for a heat pump survey for homes up to 4 bedrooms or about 200 meters squared. But for larger homes, of course, that does take a bit more time. If we move on then to, some pictures of our community outreach. We like to bring along a Duplo set here, which tends to bring the kids in, and the kids bring the adults, and we can have chats that way. But we have a little Duplo house, which has a installation and heat pumps and a hot water tank and some little solar panels on the roof and so on. We have in the past also invited installers or wholesalers to bring a heat pump out, which it's not always feasible to have a heat pump brought to an event, but it is a nice attraction to get people talking. Apart from so we do try to sort of get out and about and meet people where they are in the park or at the museum or so on. But on the next slide, we have we also run our own events, so talks and open homes. There's the open home or a heat pump open house that we've an event there we ran a few years ago. In the autumn, we had a few events at Royston Museum on draft proofing, and we had an expert draft proofer from a group called Reading Draft Busters come and give lots of tips, and a few of us sort of tried to take as much of that material on board so that we can then hand that on to people in further events. And then there was a heat pump talk there that we gave as part of Cambridge Carbon Footprint's Open Eco Home series, which was well attended. So a bit about what we're working on for this year. So we have we're very excited to have received funding from North Herts Council to develop the Royston Home Energy Improvement Guide. So this features will feature 5 sort of common Royston house types, which you can see here to get an idea of the range. So last winter we ran a householder sort of questionnaire and got people to fill out information about what issues they had with their homes, what was the nature of their home, where were they, would they be interested in participating in this project and having a home survey. So we had a good response from that, and from off the back of that, we were able to choose homes that were representative of various different estates around town. So we've surveyed these homes now and are in the process of doing some energy modeling and looking at retrofit options for the various different cases and seeing the nuances between them. And we hope that then that will be a resource that will be publicly available online, hopefully in some venues around town. People will be able to view it or pick up a copy, and it's also something that we can use within our outreach in the area. As part of the same project, we are running a couple of warm homes evenings in February. So there's a couple of different motivations for that. One of which is to preview the energy guide with local residents to make sure that we haven't filled it up with any jargon or put in anything that doesn't make sense to just a lay person with a normal amount of knowledge on home energy. We'll also be showing some thermal imaging in collaboration with Royston Environmental Group, and utilizing our draft proofing knowledge that we got last autumn. So we have 2 events in the evening, and we're also working with Royston Repair Cafe that will have a drop-in session at their repair cafe on the 14th of February. So I can put that link into the chat in a moment if anyone is interested in coming along and seeing what we've got up to. I'll just switch gears a little bit into the saving money on bills, saving carbon at home. So this information might be things that that some people already know, but there may be something that if it's not useful for you, it might be useful for someone else who you know. So if there is something like that, I mean, please do pass it along. Think of people who might be struggling with their energy or with their bills this winter. So just understanding your energy bill is important, and it's not something that everyone is able to do, particularly if someone is elderly or maybe speaks another language as their first language. It's not, or they just aren't the most interpretable things in the first place. But a key thing to know is that the energy companies are obligated to put on your bill whether you are on the cheapest tariff at the current energy supplier that you have. So if you look on your bill, you should be able to find somewhere near the top a comment on whether or not you are on the cheapest tariff. So you might be able to change and save money even without changing supplier, just calling them up or going online and saying, you know, please, can I go on to the cheaper tariff that you've recommended for me here? Reading your meter regularly also helps to make sure that you only pay for what you use. If you don't read it, they will still bill you. They'll just make an estimate, and that may or may not be accurate. And if you are using more or less, that can impact. You just don't want to have a surprise at some point when your meter is finally read and there may be a big adjustment one way or the other. Smart meters are also something worth considering. Some people feel a bit reticent or a bit uncomfortable about having a smart meter installed, which I'll say you can have it for free. The energy companies are generally very, very keen to install smart meters if you don't already have one. If you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, a bit nervous about that, I will say the data, the energy use data from the smart meter is very tightly held. There's really a lot of security around who is able to access that. To the point where if you do want to share it with someone, it's sometimes not actually easy to do so. So if that data security is something that you're concerned about, I would encourage you to read up on that because it is held very securely. Heating controls are another one. If you have a time and temperature control, it's definitely worth setting it up and using it. Or if you have it but you're a bit uncomfortable using it, maybe find someone who's a little bit more sort of tech savvy that can get that programmed to your needs. Switching things off, of course, always helps. Vampire devices, anything that if you feel the charger for it or where it's plugged into the wall, if you touch it and it feels warm, then that means that it's using electricity, making heat, and that's something that you can be turning off. Right, on the next slide then, I'll also mention the Priority Services Register, which is a really good thing to know about. So this is where various utility companies, so that includes the electricity company, gas company, water, I'm sure there's a few others I'm forgetting, they are obliged to offer extra services free of charge to people who are of pensionable age, who are vulnerable for various other reasons, medical conditions, or visual hearing impairments, or sort of otherwise vulnerable. So all you need to do is to call one of you can get in contact with your energy company or the network operator or the water. You can just contact one of them, and then, as I understand it, they will actually share that information across the different services. It may be something you think, oh, you know, it's sort of fine. I don't really need that. But there are a lot of worthwhile benefits like priority support in an emergency, advance notice of planned power cuts, meter reading services if it's difficult for you or someone you know to get to your meter. So worth keeping in mind if either you or maybe more likely someone you know would benefit from that, to take advantage of it. Just wrapping up then, if you're interested in home energy and you're in North Hertfordshire and you have a bit of spare time, we would love for you to be involved. We are always looking for places to do outreach events. If you'd be keen to have a talk on home energy very broadly, or maybe a deep dive on a certain topic, we'd be keen to come to your community group or your workplace, your church. If you have a group of neighbors, we're happy to come and talk to people interested in energy. If you have a bit more time than that and you'd be interested in becoming an energy champion and helping us with community outreach, we would love to hear from you. This is something that can be very flexible and sort of tailored to your interest and availability. But if you have an interest in people and also in home energy, then it would be great to get in touch. If you're less of a people person but still want to be involved, there's plenty of more behind the scenes roles sort of in governance and operations. So I would say, you know, don't be shy. If you are tempted, then please do get in touch. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you, Fiona. So yes, so just going back from the end there, lots of options there for anyone who's interested for the social and the not quite so social. That's really good to hear. Just as a comment about the priority services register, you don't have to be elderly or infirm to be eligible for it. I have disabled children and we are on the priority services register, so we are on it as well. I would honestly encourage anyone who thinks it would be useful to them in any way to register for the usefulness that it has. We have had notifications of planned power cuts and such, which meant I've been able to tell the kids in advance that there will be no electrics for a little bit. So they were prepared for it, which was nice. And when you've got neurodivergent children, it's good that they get a head start on such things. I'm thrilled to hear that the Zero Carbon Ashwell appears to have launched. I remember talking to them, I believe, at the energy conference that we were at together last year. They were still going through the motions of getting started, and they'd been, I think, getting started for a while. So seeing that they've got something launched is so good to see, and I'm absolutely thrilled, and I hope to be in touch with them very soon. The understanding your energy bill, that would be very useful, because I have some blind trust in my bill, and I probably shouldn't do, to be perfectly honest. I probably should criticize it a little bit more and scrutinize it a little bit more. So that has reminded me that I should probably go and do that, along with all the other admin of my house that I do need to do. Now, I have waffled a bit. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the community energy presentation that they would like to bring forward? Thank you, Fiona. I've just seen you put the link to the Warm Homes event in Royston. Do you want us to circulate that at all?
Yes, that would be good. That's been on my list to get in touch about that. Oh, I can send, actually. We've made a little graphic now. I can send.
Brilliant.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, we can find a way to how to do that. Right, so I saw Roger's hand go up and then Sue Lines. So Roger, if you'd like to go first.
Yes, just a quick one. It's all very well talking about retrofitting and sorting out the existing housing stock, but North Hertfordshire is building thousands of new homes in this part of the county, and I'm wondering why the contractors, the builders, the landowners aren't insisting that all new houses have a roof capable of taking 4 kilowatts of solar panels orientated between southeast and southwest. Do you have a view on that?
So Fiona, if you'd like to come in that. I'm so sorry, Roger. Would you mind muting yourself? There appears to be some sort of odd echo.
Sorry?
There's an echo coming through when you're not muted. I heard everything you said. It's just that there's and my brain can't cope with hearing my own voice about, no, seriously, words are not coming out my mouth. Would you mind going on mute, Roger? Please. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. A minor technical thing that is an issue, but I've got anyway, yes, I have noted what you said. Fiona, would you like to come in on what Roger said? Because
I mean, I would love to see not just with the potential, but the actual, right? The actual that new homes should actually have already on them the solar panels installed and a heat pump and all of the, all of those things. So I mean, what else to say? There's some movement from national government on this, and I know there's I think there's interest and I know that's what the council would like to see as well, but I know that things do get sort of watered down as things go through the planning permission. So I mean, I think we would all want to, encourage the planners to be sort of as, as strict as they possibly can. There may be some, one thing that the Green Heat Co-op is also involved with is the Hertfordshire retrofit strategy, or the Hertfordshire sort of retrofit steering group that's coming together. And hopefully that will also get sort of a number of right people in the room to have conversations about how can people with that relevant experience provide input sort of to the councillors, to the planners, to give them the information they need to hold the line on new developments, because absolutely. And
thank you, Fiona. Just on top of that, from a national government side of things, there was a refresh of the NPPF, the National Policy Planning Policy Framework, literally in December, so literally only a couple of weeks ago, that was released. And my briefest skim read, I can see that there are points about achieving well-designed places, which is in chapter 14, which stresses the importance of minimizing environmental impact through layout, orientation, and functional design, and securing clean energy with chapter 10 emphasizes delivering net zero and facilitating on-site low carbon energy. So this would all allude to, things like having solar panels on your roof. Although it doesn't explicitly require, the NPPF itself doesn't explicitly require roofs to be solar ready, the policies do look like they are compelling developers and planning authorities to consider how building design, including roof orientation, facilitates low carbon generation. So there is some swing in there if it works with your town plan, or your local plan, even, when it comes to planning applications and what the expectations are. So, and I do know that in our local plan, there are parts of when it comes to, I'm going off on a massive tangent here, I'm sorry, and I'm very aware it's already late in the evening. But anyway, yes, there's new stuff that's out. It might be worth a read, and it will hopefully be relevant to this and helpful as well. Sue Lyons, you were next, if you wouldn't mind. Oh, you're on mute, Sue.
Right, done it. Okay. I put in the chat, I was interested that no Letchworth schools, that Fiona didn't mention any Letchworth schools reported as having solar arrays, unless, of course, they were done by another supplier, which she doesn't know about. Now, I knew about Fernhill because I used to work there, and it's just like a sort of every bit of heat coming in comes in, and every bit of heat inside goes out. Unless things have been radically changed since I worked there, it just strikes me as the most vulnerable school probably in the county because it was built during when oil was cheap. And I wondered if there was any information about whether Fernhill had been approached, because it strikes me as a very, very vulnerable school. Does Fiona know anything about it?
I don't know that school in particular. Is that a regular sort of local authority run school?
Yes.
Yes. So the there is a push, as you mentioned, for this sort of locally owned generation that's coming from Great British Energy, and part of that I think is about sort of schools and NHS facilities. The tricky bit with schools, and others may know more about this, is of course they're run by the county council, and I think there are other groups in the county sort of working through the logistics and the sort of behind the scenes details of what are all the boxes that have to be ticked to get Herts County Council comfortable and signed up to solar on schools. So hopefully that is something that will be ironed out, and then
or may have happened, in fact, and I just don't know about it. But I just noticed that the schools that you mentioned, and you didn't mention any in Letchworth, so that was why I picked up on it.
Yeah, as far as I know, there aren't any local authority run schools in the district in our district that do have solar panels. At least not from a community energy source.
Right.
That's
Thank you.
I wonder if St Chris has got solar panels. That wouldn't come up on the local authority one. Okay. I would imagine that with Fernhill, because it's such an old school, that doing something like putting solar panels on the roof, I wonder if it's a case of they might not be able to take it, because obviously there's issues with whether a roof can take the weight of a solar panel and the framework can be done. And also the physical building itself, we don't know if in a few years in the future it might be a decision to do what they did to Highfield, which is build a new one in the playground and then turn the old school into the playground, because it needs a massive upgrade. Poor Fernhill is quite run down, unfortunately. But that I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. It's a thought. So yes. Okay, Julia, sorry, Sue, if you were asking me something again, you were on mute again. No, okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Okay, Julia Sananda, your hand is up and you are on mute. You're not on mute anymore. There we go. Wonderful.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that I think some schools may have got Salix funding for things like solar panels, or even for improving the sort of the insulation. I have this vague feeling I saw something like that going on in a bit of Fernhill, where they were doing something on the wall. But actually, I think Transition Town looked at a lot of school roofs a while back when we first formed, and the reality is that some of them are very old, they can't take the weight, or if actually the roof's going to need replacing, then it wouldn't be financially sensible to go and put a solar panel up on it, a solar installation on it. So I think there has been looks at Letchworth roofs, but it's the age of the buildings that don't lend itself to having a solar system put up. Lordship had the money, Salix funding, to do it, but I don't know if it ever did it, because it had a leaky roof at the time, and I think that might have got led to the sort of lost its moment. But I just thought I'd share that.
Okay, thank you, Julia.
The ideal time to put solar panels on, of course, could be when the roof is being replaced. So even just having a list, this one was not done because, the roof was going to be replaced in 5 years, then, if you're able to keep that in mind for when the time comes, and that might be the most advantageous and cost-effective time to put it on. But it does, involve sort of keeping track of quite a few things.
Thank you. And this is just a very quick public service announcement. But Roger, please don't get any ideas of testing the durability of roofs again. Thank you so much.
Sorry, what you want me to do?
No, don't do it.
Don't do it.
No. And the echo appears to have gone when you come on, so that's much better. Okay, right. Any other questions for Fiona? Can't see any hands up, digital or otherwise. Okay. Marvellous. Thank you so much, Fiona. The links are in the chats, and obviously there's things going to be circulated as well. Everyone's been taking notes and such. That's brilliant. In that case, we are at public participation, which we pretty much just had, unless there's something that I have forgotten about. Was there anything else to be coming to tonight? I think we're all done, aren't we? That's great. Okay, so going back to item 4 of my chair's announcements, has anyone had any thoughts about future topics and subjects that they'd like to see discussed here at the environmental panel? Please raise your hands. Jilly.
Hello. I did address a letter to the committee a few weeks ago that I sent to Georgina. And Georgina, you assured me that other parties were looking at the question of what I raised was something that we've discussed in the locally formed resilience community. So Sue here and Christine, we're part of this local community resilience group, and we saw a talk by Professor Tim Lang about food security. And it's really, while currently there is no requirement for this authority to make provision for food and water security, it is coming. I just wonder how many of the committee here are aware of Tim Lang's recent report called Just in Case? Anybody? I did send a letter, Amy. I don't know if
I've got it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, the slight echo there. Yes, I've got it. I forwarded it on. We have, because obviously this has all happened. When was this sent? Yes, so this was sent on 17th of December, and also between then we've had a bit of Christmas recess and everything like that. But I did flag it up, and for consideration of which everyone agreed to do exactly that. So yes, but thank you for the link, which I have obviously shared with everybody. So
So just to reiterate the request, really, which is to, while currently you don't have a legal or financial framework for making local provision in the event of any of the crises that could happen, be it cyber attacks or enormous broken water main or another pandemic, given that the food supply is just in time. I mean, literally, food storage supplied to our supermarkets is in the trucks. There are not vast reserves of food in the country being stored somewhere else. It's all in the vehicles and in the supermarkets. So in effect, there's only, a few days, assuming people don't bulk buy. And what we need, while we do have local resilience forums, they're mainly blue light responses in the event of crises. And what we actually need is the inclusion of food and water in our preparedness. Now, like I said, I understand that as an authority, you don't have a legal and financial structure at the moment, but you could definitely demand one, and that needs pushing back up the chain to county authorities and to further up to government to say, we are not prepared. If you read that report that I've linked in that letter, and in fact, to save you doing that, because it's a very long document, the executive summary is 52 pages long. So what I've done is given you a very short summary in my letter of what the issues are and what the recommendations from Professor Tim Lang are. So please do read that. And maybe this is something that you could just decide to do, or we could talk about again.
Thank you, Jilly. As a side thing, I've just not long come back from being in Scotland for a couple of days, and the house we stayed at was in a village where it was normal for the snow to be up to here a couple of decades ago. So, of course, these houses that were all built with additional larders and storage facilities and things like that. And there was like an additional kitchen and a downstairs bit where there was all this space for you to store all your extra food and extra fridge and extra freezer and all that sort of stuff. And so that was normal because that's what the conditions that people were used to. And obviously down here in Hertfordshire, a bit different. It doesn't necessarily have that unless people have chosen to have something like that on their home anyway. There isn't that sort of storage for you to store, food that way. In fact, houses are being built now. There's as far as I'm aware, the newer the house, the less storage it tends to have, and the less land you've got to use in, for example, a garden to actually have something to store anything in. So that's been my experience anyway. But yes, that has all been circulated with the officers, and we will be discussing it at our policy discussion. Roger, you've got your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Fine, good. On a totally different subject, which is a bit strange for an environmental meeting, but parking, and in particular commuter parking. We all want people to go to work on their on the trains, on bicycles, buses and so forth, but it's very noticeable in the local plan and all the SPDs and all these documents that keep coming out. The word commuter parking doesn't appear in any of them, and it appears that Letchworth in particular is just anti-commuter parking. This is illustrated by the fact there's a plan going through at the moment to stop commuter parking in Solershot East and Solershot West and Field Lane. The commuters are having to park further and further out from the town centre. We're very fortunate to have a station in the middle of the town, but all these new houses, and in fact this is general across the whole of North Hertfordshire, all the new estates are typically more than 2 miles from the town centre, 2 miles from their railway station, the only exception of course being Baldock, which is quite close to the railway station. So all these new home occupiers that are going to migrate into all these new houses are likely to be commuters from the south. We have a relatively good train service from Letchworth and the North Herts railway stations down towards London, but we don't, not only is there very poor parking for commuters, but all the documentations and plans that I've seen don't even recognise it as a problem. There is no strategy, there is no expectation to cure the problem. If you talk to anybody that's green, they say, oh, they should use bicycles, buses and so forth. But as I said, most of these houses are a long way from the railway station. They'll be mainly occupied by people moving into the area from the south, and that will create more and more pressure for commuter parking. And I would make a plea that from the environmental side, you say to the planners, we want people using the trains, we've got to have a strategy. I don't know what the strategy should be, it's just that we should have a strategy for commuter parking, particularly in Letchworth. I've spoken about this to one of your planning guys, and he said, well, most of the land in Letchworth belongs to the Heritage Foundation, so I would highly recommend that somebody from the council and somebody from the Heritage Foundation get together and come up with some sort of strategy, albeit maybe more multi-storey car parks or park and ride or something. But we can't just stop banning commuter parking in Letchworth. And the Heritage Foundation is forever saying, oh, we've got a multi-storey car park, it's never used. Well, it's locked at 7 o'clock. If you're commuting from London with all the railway problems and so forth, you can't guarantee necessarily to get back to your car by 7 o'clock in the evening. And most commuters just don't use that facility for that reason. So please, from an environmental viewpoint, could you take on commuter parking into your group?
Thank you so much, Roger. Yes, so there is something referred to commuter parking in the NPPF, but like I said, I've only done a skim read of it, so we'll discuss that at policy. Regarding the, sorry, there's still a slight echo, but it's much better than it was. Regarding the car park, it didn't used to finish. Thank you, Roger. It didn't used to close at 7. The demand meant that there was very little use of it after 7 o'clock, so it started closing at 7 o'clock. Because unfortunately, if you don't have the demand or the use of something and the costs that are paid to cover its service or it's being used, then it's just throwing money into a bottomless pit, unfortunately, and we can't keep, money can't be thrown into something, especially when it's public money as well. So, but,
Amy, can I just chip in there? I think the car park closing early was because a lot of the antisocial behaviour we had in the car parks.
That was definitely a factor as well, but there was also many other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are used, but the usage is lower. But that's one of the main reasons for the closures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I completely understand why and everything like that. It suggests that there needs to be more interesting places for people to go that's not a multi-storey car park. Yeah, and again, with the commuter-friendly side of things, it is addressed in a little bit in the NPPF, but that'll be worth a deep dive for us later on. Okay, so everyone's been scribbling some notes and such. And Sue, you've got your hand up as well.
I've given thought to this business about commuter cars because I suffer from them in Bedford Road quite a lot. And I suspect we'll get more if Solid Shot actually bans the parking. That isn't my point. My point is that actually, this actually is probably something that needs to be addressed at a much higher level about transport and using buses. I've often thought that if we had a systematic survey of where people are driving in from, and I'm sure that quite a lot of it's coming down from Stotfold, to see what time people are coming in to commute and what time the range that they're going home, and hopper buses. This should be addressed to the regional authorities about it, to not require people to have 2 cars, one of which is tied up sitting stationary in the town all day, while the other car presumably is being running children to school and doing all sorts of other things. We would actually be environmentally much safer, I think, if we could approach things in this kind of way. I don't see any sign of it happening. I'd love to think it was, but I have to make that point. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sue. Okay. Any more hands? Any more comments? I know there's been things put in the chat. So, yeah, safe cycle routes. Yes, the other thing that Roger pointed out regarding walking and cycling and such, yes, they are definitely more environmentally friendly. However, you also need to be physically fit enough to do it. And as someone who's got a really crumbly spine, I can lift heavy things and I can walk for miles. But if I cycle on a bicycle, I am a bit ruined. LGR update. I'm well up for discussing local government reorganisation a bit more. And I would imagine that there is environmental factors in that are going to be very, very important that we need to consider, because no matter what, the authority that we will be in whatever way will be bigger. So it is well worth considering what will happen there. So yes, an LGR update for overall though, John, I believe there is some things on the actual council website to have a look at. Or you can contact the exec for local government reorganisation, which is Councillor Laura Williams. She is the one in charge of it specifically. Her background is on change management, so she was the ideal person to be dealing with that. So you can send her an email and ask questions, and she'll get back to you. But on an environmental perspective, then yes, we can look at what LGR will be doing to our environmental policies. Okay, anything else that I have missed? I don't.
Amy.
Yes, Councillor Strong.
Yeah, I think perhaps only one of the things that again, that I think is of interest is looking at the new wording in the NPPF and what effect that actually has on the environment. What more we need to do, particularly in planning policy.
Yep.
For all the new developments.
So a good old deep dive on the NPPF. Excellent. Okay.
I think we do. I think we need it. I think it's it's good. I think it's probably good from this forum, and then if there's anything we pick up, we can steer that through into council policy.
Fantastic. Okay, well, it's 127 pages long, so that will be a good old read for all of us when I actually look at it properly rather than the skim reading sections like I've just done. Now, okay, let me bring back up my notes again, otherwise I'll be lost without them. Excellent. Okay, so with that, there's no more hands up. I've acknowledged all the comments in the chat. That appears to be everything. So with that in mind, I am now suggesting that we close the meeting at 6 minutes to 9. The next meeting for the panel is Wednesday, the 11th of February. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And thank you to officers for the work you've done for tonight's meeting.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah, thanks, Amy.
Cheers. Thanks a lot,
Good night,
Councillor
all.
Strong.
Amy. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.